Hi, welcome back to the last of our ways of reading the Iliad video. This video is not really about reading the Iliad. This is about buying a copy of the Iliad and all the other books we're going to use in class. I'm sitting here in my office in Hamilton Hall with, here are just some of my books for Lit Hum, and here are just some of my translations of Homer's Iliad that I have here in my office. Lit Hum is a class where we read a lot of books. And some of the books we read, there are lots of different ways to get your hands on them. And I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about finding the right edition, the right translation, the right copy of the book for you to have in Lit Hum that's going to best set you up for success. Students have a lot of questions about this every year, so I thought I'd try to get out ahead of it and answer some of them in a quick video. First, the most important thing in Lit Hum when you're getting your books, please get the right translation. Okay, Homer's Iliad, Homer's Odyssey, these poems are at least 2,600 years old, maybe more. Watch my video with Professors Ma and Steiner to learn a little bit more about this. Poems that have been around for that long have been translated lots of times. They've even been translated into English lots of times. Now, you'll see here, I have, let's see, this is Robert Fitzgerald's Iliad. This is Robert Fagels's Iliad. There's a rule if you're named Robert, you have to translate the Iliad. We're using Richmond Lattimore's Iliad. And we've already sent you a digital copy, but some of you might want to get a paper copy too, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. It's really important to make sure that when you're coming to Lit Hum with your book, when you're doing your homework, when you're writing your essays, that you've got the same translation that your professor is using and that your classmates are using, right? You'll quickly get lost otherwise. We also write a common final exam every year, and we use the standard set translations to write the final exam. So you should make sure you know what translation your instructor is using. Now, let me give you an example of how to get that information. Your instructor is going to give you a syllabus, which is going to have a reading list on it. Here is the standard reading list that we provide to all instructors to include in our syllabi. There's some important information in a document like this. Here's the first book, Homer, Iliad. So far, so good. In the parentheses here, this is the crucial stuff. Chicago, that means University of Chicago Press, translated by Lattimore. So this little TR dot is doing a lot of work. If you go to Amazon and type in Homer's Iliad, you're going to find a lot of different translations and a lot of different editions. But this reading list is telling you, make sure you get the one that's translated by Lattimore. Now, you'll see a few books on here have stars next to them. That means you don't have to buy that. We're going to provide you with a digital copy in what we call the Lit Hum Reader. But for some of these, we really want to make sure you get the right translation. Make sure you get Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey. Make sure you've got Anne Carson's translation of Sappho, which comes with its own title, written by Carson herself, If Not Winter. The Bible, this is a classic, tricky one. Many translations of the Bible are available. We're using the New Oxford Annotated Bible with the Apocrypha. So this is the kind of thing you need to make sure you're looking at when you've got a syllabus in front of you and you're going out to get textbooks. Make sure you know which translation your class is using. The standard translations on the common reading list should all be available in the campus bookstore and at Book Culture on 112th Street. Your professor might prefer a different one, or they might not care which translation you use. This is just something to ask first. I'll also say that it's important, if you can, to try to get the right edition. Books that are published sometimes go through multiple editions. They might be republished many times over many years. Richmond Lattimore's Iliad was first published, I think, in the 1950s or 60s. We're using a very modern edition of it now. The nice thing about getting an up-to-date edition is that it's more likely to have the most up-to-date and helpful introductions and notes at the end, which can be really helpful when you're trying to navigate a new book. This is a really common question I get from students. Can I get Lit Hum texts in digital form? And this is a question I have a lot of trouble answering, not least because I'm a historian of books. I think about this stuff all the time. I have a lot of very strong opinions about it, but I'm also a teacher, and I know that things are often different in the classroom than they are in theory. So the short answer to this question is that we have no official policy on digital versus print texts, but that you should check with your instructor because they may have a policy or a preference for what you have in class. The long answer is that I personally prefer my students, wherever possible, to have physical books. And this is not just because I'm old and old-fashioned. I love digital texts. I use them all the time in my work and when I'm reading for pleasure. My personal experience has been that physical books are better for what we're doing in literature humanities. They let you focus on what you're reading. They let you write in the margins. They don't distract you. My print copy of the Iliad does not run TikTok or Twitter or Instagram or let me surf the web when I get bored, right? I can keep a physical book on my shelf. And alumni, whether they graduated 2 years ago or 40 years ago, are always coming up to me and saying, I still have my copy of the Iliad on my shelf. It reminds me of my time at Columbia. I like to look at it and revisit the book. So there are various what we call affordances to physical books that are worth thinking about here. But look, digital texts have their affordances too, and you might be really attached to them. Digital texts can be searched. You can annotate them with a stylus or on your laptop. I can't sit here and tell you that digital texts are bad. I'm just going to ask you to do 3 things for me. 1, find out what your instructor's policy is, if they have one, before you commit to getting digital texts. 2, please at least think about it. Consider getting a physical book. And 3, when you get a digital text, make sure you're buying the right translation. The internet is full of digital editions of the books we read that are mislabeled or are the wrong translation. Amazon will very happily sell you a Kindle ebook of the Iliad for 99 cents that turns out to be a translation that was published 200 years ago. You are not going to enjoy that, I assure you. In fact, I even have here in my office this copy of the Iliad, which is Alexander Pope's translation, published print on demand and sold on Amazon. And I'm sorry to say, it looks like garbage. It has no good notes, and it would be no good in class because it's not the translation anyone else is using. So just make sure that whatever you're doing, you're paying attention to this. Finally, I want to talk about the cost of books. This class has a lot of books, and the cost can add up. If you're having trouble with the cost of books in LitHum, we have lots of resources to help with that. What you should do is contact the Center for the Core Curriculum. All right, their office is located in Hamilton Hall. You can Google it, or you can email them, core-curriculum@columbia.edu. All right, I hope you've been enjoying your reading in Iliad 1 through 6, whether you're doing it digitally or by print. I wish you best of luck finishing the reading. I hope you're excited about starting the semester. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Please get in touch with the core curriculum if you have any questions or any trouble with any aspect of literature humanities. We'll see you soon.